Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Ketubot. We are up to Perek Daled Mishnah Gimel. Today's Mishnah should be Leilu Nishmat Neria ben Svetlana Ranbai Eliyahu ben Burcha Yisraelov and Chana bat Miriam Menuchatam began Eden Amen Eleavde ben Chaim lechaim v'derefua shenemav Daniel Shalom ben Rosa betor Shach Chole Yisrael. In Sefer Dvarim, chapter 22, verses 13 through 21, the Torah states the laws of the Motzi Shemra, the slanderer. This is a husband who betrothed the Nara and claimed that she was not a virgin on the night of their wedding, Nisuin, and brought witnesses who testified that she committed adultery during the betrothal period, Erusin. If the witnesses are found to have been lying, the husband receives lashes for slandering his wife, and he must pay a fine of 100 selas to her father. One sela is 4 zuz. However, if the witnesses were telling the truth, she receives a death penalty of skila, stoning, for the crime of adultery, and the skila takes place at the entrance of her father's house. In order to receive the death penalty, she must have been warned immediately before the act that what she is about to do is prohibited by the Torah, and that it is punished by skila, stoning. The punishment of skila applies only where the adultery was committed during Erusin by a virgin Nara. In almost all other cases of adultery, the punishment is chenek, strangulation. Now, a virgin Nara who sinned during Erusin receives skila at the entrance of her father's house only if the witnesses testified against her after Nisuin, meaning they testified after Nisuin that she committed adultery during Erusin. If they testified during Erusin, she incurs her punishment at the gate of the city, as the Torah says in Sefer Dvarim, chapter 22, verses 21 and 24. These laws, which define the type of death penalty and its location, apply even where the husband did not accuse her of adultery, but witnesses came to the court of their own accord, as the Rambam discusses in Ilchot Isurei Biyah, chapter 3, Halacha 8. The Torah's passage of the Motzi Shemra refers specifically to a virgin Nara who is accused of having committed adultery during Erusin. It also specifies one who was born a Jewess. The Mishnah teaches the laws that apply to a girl who was born a non-Jew and converted. If a female convert converted together with her daughter, the Mishnah refers to a virgin who converted under the age of 3. Since such a young child cannot convert by herself, the Mishnah explains that her mother converted with her. Vizintar, and the daughter, when she was a virgin Nara, committed adultery during Erusin. Harezu bechenek, she is put to death by strangulation and not stoning. Chenek, strangulation, is a death penalty that applies in most cases of adultery. En lah lo, she is not executed at en lah lo petach bet av v'lo me'asela, she is not executed at the entrance of the father's house. And if the witnesses who testified against her are found to be false, the husband does not pay the fine of 100 selas. The law of death by stoning at the entrance of the father's house if she is guilty, and the husband's fine of 100 selas if he was lying, pertain only to a virgin Nara who was born a Jewess and not to one who was born a non-Jew. The next section of the Mishnah deals with the virgin Nara who was partially a convert and partially a born Jewess. If her conception was not in sanctity, but her birth was in sanctity, meaning she was conceived before her mother converted and born after the conversion, she is put to death by stoning, as in the case of an ordinary Jewess. However, the other laws stated in the passage of the Motzi Shemra do not apply to her, and she is not executed at the entrance of the father's house. And if the witnesses who testified against her are found to be false, her husband does not pay the fine of 100 selas. She is not considered to be a Jewess of pure lineage, and therefore is not included in the passage of the Motzi Shemra. Nevertheless, it is derived from one of the verses that she is subject to skila. If her conception or birth were in sanctity, even her conception occurred after her mother converted, she is considered to have been born a Jewess in every respect. Therefore, all the standard laws apply to her. If she had indeed committed adultery, she receives skila at the entrance of her father's house, and if the husband was lying, he pays 100 selas. The following laws concern a virgin Nara who was born a full-fledged Jewess. As the Mishnah just stated, this category includes one who was conceived by a woman after she converted. If she has a father, but does not have an entrance to the father's house, meaning her father is alive but does not own a house. Or if she has an entrance to the father's house, but she does not have a father, meaning her father is dead, but he owned the house that now belongs to his heirs, she is put to death by stoning, even though the stoning cannot be performed at the entrance of her father's house. because the Torah requires the entrance of the father's house only as a mitzvah in its own right, and not as a necessary condition for the penalty of stoning. And that is Rabotai of Mishnah Gimel. Now, a girl is under the jurisdiction of her father when she is a ktana or nara, and leaves when she becomes a bogeret, as taught in Mishnah 1. Mishnah Daled lists the rights a father has with respect to his daughter when she is still a ktana or nara. A father is entitled to the instrument of his daughter's betrothal erusin, whether it is the money that the groom gives for this purpose or a marriage document, and a father can choose a husband for her and let him betroth her by means of cohabitation. A groom can effect kiddushin, another word for the act of erusin, in one of three ways. A, he gives his bride an object of monetary value, such as a ring, for the sake of kiddushin. B, he gives her a document of kiddushin. C, he cohabits with her for the sake of kiddushin, as the Mishnah teaches us in Masechet Kiddushin, chapter 1, Mishnah 1. If the bride is a ktana or nara, the groom must give the object or marriage document to the father, whose acceptance of it makes the kiddushin go into effect. The father may then keep it. The document itself has some monetary value, for at the very least it can be used as a cork to seal a bottle, and the father may choose a husband for her who can effect kiddushin by any means, including cohabitation. He's entitled to what she finds. If a girl finds an object that need not be returned to its owner, or does not have an owner, it belongs to her father. Since the father is not obligated to support his daughter, but does so only because it is his moral duty, he may be resentful if she keeps lost objects that he finds. He might think it's unfair that he supports her, and yet when she finds things, she does not give them to him. The sages therefore decreed that he may keep what she finds so that he will not stop supporting her. Her work, a father's right to his daughter's work is derived from the Torah. Work includes income that she earns and articles that she produces, such as thread that she spins. And he has the right to cancel her vows. The Torah gives a father the power to cancel any vows, neder, made by his daughter on the day that he hears it, as it says in Bamidbar, chapter 30, verses 4 through 6. He has this right even when she is a nara, as stated in verse 24 there. And he receives her get, or document of divorce. For the divorce to go into effect, the divorce document must be given to the father. He may then keep the document and use it for any purpose. And the Mishnah refers to a divorce granted during Erusin. At Nisuin, the daughter leaves the jurisdiction of her father, and he is no longer entitled to receive her get, or to any of the other rights listed in the Mishnah. However, if she inherited property, now obviously the Mishnah does not refer to property the girl inherited from her father since he is still alive, rather it refers to an inheritance she received from her mother's father. If her mother's father died after her mother and she has no other heirs, his property goes to her, his granddaughter. Right? If she inherited property, is not entitled to eat its produce in her lifetime. If the property produces income, for example, land on which crop grows, the father is not entitled to keep the profits. Rather, he must hold them in trust for her. The Mishnah specifies in her lifetime because if she dies and has no husband, he inherits everything she owns. Now, once a woman, minor or adult, is nisuin, she enters the jurisdiction of her husband. The Mishnah states the right to which her husband is entitled, niset, when she is fully married, nisuin, yater alav abal shochel perot bechaya. The husband has more rights than her father, and that he may eat the produce of her property in her lifetime. Meaning, besides the rights to keep her fines and her work, and to cancel her vows, her husband is also entitled to what her property produces. The sages decreed that a husband may keep what his wife finds so that he will not resent having to support her, as it says in Bamitzia, page 12b. They also decreed that he is entitled to her work for the same reason in Masechet Ketubot, page 58b. And the Torah in Sefer Bamidbar, chapter 30, verses 7 through 9, grants him the right to cancel certain of her vows. Furthermore, the sages decreed that if a wife acquires property, her husband is entitled to any income that it generates. The sages granted her husband this right so that he will not resent having to pay his wife's ransom in the event of her being kidnapped, which is his obligation, as stated below in this Mishnah. A father, by contrast, is not entitled to the income of his daughter's property, as the Mishnah taught above, because the father would ransom his daughter anyway. Now, having listed a husband's rights with respect to his wife, the Mishnah lists some of his obligations toward her. He is obligated to pay for her support, as stated in Sefer Shemot, chapter 21, verse 10. The obligation to support her includes food and clothing, both of which are mentioned in that verse. He is obligated to pay her ransom if she is captured. The obligation to free one's wife from captivity is rabbinic, and he's obligated to pay for her burial if she dies before him. In return for his right to inherit her property, the sages required him to pay for her burial. According to the next Tana, a husband must provide a certain minimum for his wife's funeral. Rabbi Yehuda says, even a poor Jew may not have fewer than 2 flutes playing at his wife's funeral, and a woman who leads the mourners in lamenting. To inspire weeping at a funeral, the family would hire musicians to play flutes and a woman to lead the mournful chanting. The Tana Kama disagrees with Rabbi Yehuda, and his view it is not necessary to hire two flutists and a lamenting woman. The Gemara on page 48a in Masechet Ketubot explains that the dispute concerns a case where making such an elaborate funeral was the custom of the husband's family, but not the custom of the wife's family. The general rule is that a husband must give his wife all the advantages of his family's customs. The Tana Kama holds that this rule does not apply after her death, therefore he does not need to provide an elaborate funeral, whereas Rabbi Yehuda maintains that it applies even then. And that is the Rabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.